Business, I have 5 companies now. We'll do 100 million this year. I started every one of those companies with no money. Zero money, man. Just hustle and grit and courage. I've called on people I didn't want to be with. I've done things I didn't want to do, okay? It is not about doing what you love. It's about doing whatever it takes to make your dreams a reality, to be closed and stay closed. If you're not closed on your product, if you're not buying your own product, why would you expect anybody else to? Man, $400 is a lot of money. Your prospect says to you, $400, do it. Listen to me, man. You're 32 years old. You've been trying to save money for 20 years and you hadn't. Do it and do it now. I don't need anything special here. I'm not gonna be empathetic. Quit being stupid. Write the check. I don't know if the compliance guy likes that or not, but I know this. Look, if you believe in what you're selling, how many of you believe in what you're selling? Then close the deal. Then close the deal, okay? Learn to close and you'll never be without work. You'll never be without money. You'll have an organization that is booming in affluence. You'll have a pipeline full. You'll have appointments filled up, right? A group called me yesterday. I'm actually trying to do a deal with CNBC, and the guy says, I'm interested. I said, good, I'll be there tomorrow. Call me back. I'm flying into New York tomorrow. What am I trying to do right now? By the way, I was supposed to be here today. I'll fly into New York tomorrow. I can be there tomorrow, Mr. Ackerman. Okay, how does that work? I can't do tomorrow. I was gonna be here anyway, man. I'm trying to close the deal. Let me close the deal. I'll figure out how to be in 2 places at one time later. Right? Some of you in the room, they're like, hey, I can see you at 4 o'clock on Tuesday, right? And the customer says to you, I'll see you at 4 o'clock on Tuesday too. Let me look at my calendar. Like you're so busy. Dude, that is so old. That is so old, and it's dishonest. It's dishonest, man. You want to see me Tuesday, 4 o'clock? I give you Tuesday at 4 o'clock. Agree to it. Done. Done. I'll call you if something changes. If there's an earthquake between now and next Tuesday morning, there's a massive earthquake and I can't be there. You think everybody will understand? Commit first, figure the rest out later. Close the deal right now. Fill your calendar up. Your calendar's got the devil all over it. White space on a calendar and you will meet the devil. You don't need to die, okay? You go 2 or 3 days without anything going on, how many of you start having doubts? You're in hell. Oh my God, this ain't gonna work for me. There's nobody coming in. I'm not gonna hit my target. Okay, I know what I'll do. I'll lower my target. Dude, that's the devil doing that, man. That's a criminal. Never, ever, if you're taking notes, never lower a target. Never lower a target. Never lower a target. Your mom and dad would tell you to lower a target. A manager might tell you to lower a target. Be reasonable. Be reasonable with yourself. Just bring it down a little bit. No, man, criminal products are created like that. A guy sees the girl that he wants. That's the girl. She says no, he goes to another girl. Right? Gave up on his dream. If you're going to give up on your own dream, how are you going to build an organization?
Some people have been bullied. Some people are just stressed out. Some people are insecure. Some people are fat and overweight. I call myself fat because I was fat. And people don't want to do that. They want to say, oh, don't call yourself fat. Don't call yourself dumb. If you're not real and raw with who the f you are, nothing's going to change. In this nice new world that we live in, we want to hear, you're just a little big. No, man, you might be fat. We surround ourselves around people that make us feel great, that tell us what we want to hear. The second we put ourselves amongst the uncommon people, we don't like that feeling. That challenge and feeling of that person waking up at 3:30 in the morning and saying, hey, put your shit on, we're going for a run. We like that person who says, hey, you know, man, I don't feel good today, man. And they say, oh, it's okay, brother. We don't want that motherfuckers like this. Hey, man, no, bro. Get your shit on, man. Stop being a punk. This is all about the quitting mind. So what's the quitting mind? So let's say it's day 1 of a job interview. We all know what it feels like. You have your clothes laid out, You got your food ready to go in the morning. You've been preparing for weeks and weeks and weeks. You show up and you bring your best self. You get the job. Merry Christmas. All right. After a couple months, you start showing up to work a little later. You don't look as good. Your clothes aren't laid out. Your breakfast isn't ready. Your mind's getting softer. We do that everything in life. When New Year's coming up, guess what? Don't have a fucking quitting mind. Repetition every day. Stay hard. I believe that most human beings are only living at about 40% of their capability. The mind has a governor, like a car. If you're driving a car and the car has a governor on it, the car may say 130 miles an hour, but the governor's set for 91. The car wants to go. The car wants to go, but that factory said, we're not going past 91. We have a factory, a nice governor in our brain, and it's a survival mechanism. It protects us from pain and suffering. At all times of your life, the mind has a tactical advantage over you. Why is that? It knows that you're afraid of. It knows your insecurities. It knows your deep, dark lies. And it starts to push you away from that. It pushes you in a direction that is comfortable. The mind controls everything. Get to 40%, your brain says, we're done. Let's roll, man. This is starting to get painful. This is uncomfortable. So you sit down. You have to figure out ways, and everybody's different. That's how the book kind of talks about, like we all have these things about, 5 steps to this and 4 steps to this. It's a lot more than that. That's all bullshit. It's a practice that you have to, it's a habit. So if you know that at 40%, I'm feeling pain. At 40% I'm feeling pain. That's where the 40% rule kicks in. Now it starts. Okay, I'm feeling pain. My mind's saying fall to me. It's saying get out of here, run, flee. The fight or flight kicks in. Okay, we're done. We're not good enough. It starts telling you all these things. You start to believe it because the mind controls all. This is the time when you have to gain control back of your mind. It's okay. Let me see if I can go 45%. And once you start giving yourself more and more hope, and start realizing, okay, the mind starts to be, okay, what are you doing? We're supposed to be going right, and you're going left. You start then controlling your mind. Start finding more in yourself, and then it goes from 40% to a lot further than that. That's the start of it, though. Get to the spot where your mind is saying stop. Wherever that is, you gotta get there first, and then that's when that starts to work for you. You gotta control yourself in that moment. Well, it's that time of year again, we start to feel real happy. Why? Because we're not going to work. If you believe in Santa Claus and you celebrate Christmas, you're looking forward to Santa Claus coming down the chimney giving you some presents. It's a real good time of year. So in that good time of year, we start to feel real good about ourselves. So I start to feel great. So we start making promises to ourselves about, hey, I'm gonna lose some weight. I'm gonna do better in school. I'm gonna be better here, be better there. But guess what happens? The real Merry Christmas happens and all of that noise is gone. It's quiet. And it's you against you. And now all those endorphins are gone. And what promise you made by getting up early and getting after it to go lose weight, studying harder, guess what? It's a lot harder now. That repetition becomes a lot harder now. So a lot of us can't do things on our own. So find somebody in your life. So when you throw that towel in, they throw that motherfucker back at you and say you're not done yet. How you gonna feel, man, when you accomplish this goal coming from that? Coming from the fucking hell you came from. A lot of people start from a good starting point. They have a good foundation. What if you can surpass all of these ones? You have everybody who was way up here, started up here. And you started with no legs. You had to grow the legs to even start walking, and then crawling, and then running. And then you start passing people and all this given to them. This might be exactly what I need. The darkness is exactly what I need. It's how you look at your situation.
When I was in the grammar school, I tried to kill my teacher, and I've been arrested and in jail 5, 6 times. I did awful things, got in fights, beat up people, hurt people. I slept in my office. I didn't have an apartment. You come in looking like some of you, I wouldn't give you toilet paper. I didn't have any dreams. The only goal my father had for me was to keep me alive, not dead till I reached the age of reason. He didn't know if that was 20, 30, 40, or ever. And I didn't really establish goals other than staying alive because I got in a lot of trouble. When I was in the grammar school, I tried to kill my teacher, amongst other things. I got expelled, not from the school, but from the district. They wouldn't allow me to go to school in the district. And I've been arrested and in jail 5, 6 times. But then I went into the military, and that straightened me out and made a man of me.
But your father was a policeman.
My dad was a high-profile policeman, hard, tough guy.
What did you learn from him?
Well, I learned that discipline, focus, honesty.
The basic rules.
Yep.
So there were no dreams when you were young. So what did you do after school?
Got in trouble. I did awful things. Got in fights. Beat up people. Hurt people. By the grace of God, I lived. Went off to the military. Entered a private. Came out 4 years later, an officer. And I was getting a big award in the military. And there was a 2-star general that was pinning something on my chest, and he said, you know, if you were in the real world, Danny, that's what they used to call me, I was a lieutenant, you could probably get rich. And a light bulb went off over my head. I had never thought of that before. I didn't know how much $1 million was, except for about that same time frame, one of the other young officers inherited $1.4 million, and he was buying all the officers' drinks in the officers' club. And I said, well, why is John buying us all drinks? He says, he just inherited $1 million. And I said, write it down for me. I'm 22 years old. And they put it with the zeros. I go, I didn't know how many zeros $1 million had. And then the general said that if you went out in the real world, Dan, you could probably make a lot of money. I then, within a week, I took action. I reversed my paperwork. I just put in paperwork to be a permanent military forever. And I reversed it to get out. I got out 5, 6 months later. I came back, went back to school where I had to get special permission because I had flunked out 3 times out of university, and then I graduated ultimately with honors. I wanted to go where the action was, and the action in those days, and this was in 1972, was on Wall Street. So I went to work for a Wall Street firm, and I was really good at it. 1, I was a good salesman. 2, I had learned to be articulate, and I had already self-confidence and self-esteem, and so those are a great combination for an investment banker in the early 70s. Bill Gates slept in the office. Steve Jobs slept in the office. And I can go down a whole list. Now, these are super successful, mega wealthy guys. I slept in my office. Not everybody's willing to make that sacrifice. But it's not the only thing. But even if you don't sleep in your office, if you want to send your kids to a better school, if you want to be able to take care of your mother when she gets dementia, if you want to, this all takes money. My children aren't getting any of my money when I die. I'm not going to, I think Andrew Carnegie, by the way, Andrew Carnegie, arguably the richest, most successful entrepreneur of all time, he said the best thing that you can have for a child is him to be born into poverty. And I agree. But most of you don't have, and I say generally speaking, most of you don't have faith in yourselves because you got low self-esteem, no self-confidence. You look like shit. You dress like shit. And you blame it on the 21st century, the reason why you dress the way you do. 25 years ago, if you come to a seminar like this, you'd all be wearing suit and tie. 40 years ago, the women would be wearing hats. This is my uniform. I don't go to sleep like this, but I mean, this is my uniform. It has been for a long, long, long time. If you want to get money from banks, dress like the president of your country. You come in looking like some of you, I wouldn't give you fucking toilet paper. You only have one time to make a first impression, kids. Before I had any money, I used to go to the Rolls Royce dealers and sit in the cars and smell the leather, touch the leather. I went to $1 million houses, and my wife and I would walk through the house, and they'd say, when are your parents getting here, kids? No, we are the buyers. Practice within when you're without. Practice being successful. How many people listening to this today practice being successful today? Within 19 months of me dreaming and adding it to my goals, a castle on an island. I own Guthrie Castle. Go to stores you can't afford. Go hire lawyers you can't afford. Lawyers will meet with anybody. Accountants will meet with anybody. Go to the big 4 accountants with a business idea. The first couple meetings are for free. Jettison probably a lot of the people you hang around with. A lot of people don't believe they deserve to be there. I convince them, and we have these drills, why you belong there. A lot of people that come there, with money, that have made money, think they made it by accident. Nobody's failed at more things than I have, and the first 100 million are successes, but I could write a book about failures, because I've tried a lot of different things. Because failure is just testing. And one of the reasons I've been so successful in generating this equity and value in my kids, and I call you all kids, is because I convince them that making a mistake is okay. Your parents probably told you, you can be anything you want, but you can't. That's horseshit. You can't. If it's all juxtaposed, but what you tell them is that you can do anything you want that you have passion for, because that eliminates most of the crap. Because most people don't follow their dream. Like they say in The Sound of Music, you can't have a dream come true unless you have a dream. Now, I still dream. I dream in Technicolor. I say my affirmations and goals every single night. It's bloody hard to be a high-performance person. Most people procrastinate because they're unsure, so just do it. But I've never had a problem just doing it. Because one of the things is you learn as a young combat infantry officer is time costs lives. We overanalyze because we're unsure if it'll work or not. We're more worried about, on the emotional side, it embarrassing us.
What is necessary? What is the best advice? How to do it?
The best advice is find something you love. Find something that can change 1 billion lives. Zuckerberg is a classic example. He changed more than 1 billion lives.
Added value.
Correct. Added value change, you make 1 billion lives better, potentially. You may not get to 1 billion people, but potentially you can make 1 billion lives better, and the odds have just gone geometrically up for you to become a billionaire. And if not a billionaire, a whole bunch of money. It's the same advice that I give and the best advice that I got. Just do it.
Tonight, I want to talk about change and transition. And of course, change, that's what we want everybody else to do, isn't it? We don't want to do it, but we want everybody else to change so that our life will be different. And yet, of course, any changes that we're going to do at all have to come from within ourselves. They absolutely must. And change to me means that you change from a feeling of separation and isolation and loneliness and anger and fear and pain and into a state of peacefulness. Wonderful peacefulness where you can relax and really enjoy life as it comes to you, knowing that everything will be all right. I run into that premise that life is wonderful and that everything is perfect in my world, and I move into my greater good always. And that way it doesn't really matter to me which direction my life takes, because I know it's going to be wonderful, so I can enjoy all sorts of things. Gerald Jampolsky says that love is letting go of fear, and there is either fear or there's love. And if you're not in a love space, if you're not coming from the loving space of the heart, then you're in fear and all those other things like isolation and separation and things like that, and loneliness and anger. They're all part of the fear syndrome. And that's really what we want to change from. We want to move from fear into love, and to make that as more or less a permanent state for us. Even the planet itself these days is very much in this period of change and transition. We see it all around us. We're going from an old order into a new order. And some people say it began with the Aquarian age, and at least the astrologers like to describe it that way. But to me, astrology and numerology and palmistries and all those other various methodologies are just ways of describing life. They explain life in a slightly different way, and people use different language to do this. But the astrologers say that we're moving out of the Piscean age and into the Aquarian age now. And you know, in the Piscean age, we reached outside of us and looked to other people to save us. We looked for other people to do it for us. But in the Aquarian age, which we're entering now, people are beginning to go within and find that they have the power to save themselves. And this is a wonderful, liberating thing for us. Now, some people get very frightened because it seems to be responsibility. But actually, we're discovering our ability to respond to life, not in a victim way, but in a way that gives us power. In a way that gives us power. We're finding that we're getting a connection to what the AA people call the higher power and what I call our higher self, so that we can contribute to saving ourselves. And it's a wonderful feeling when you don't really have to be dependent on an outside person, but to know that you have within you tremendous abilities to make positive changes in your life. You see, if we're victims, then we feel isolated, we feel in pain and fear, and we're always looking for someone else to do it for us. But now we're taking, as I said, responsibility for our own lives, and we're beginning to understand how we can contribute to the experiences that we have and how we can change those experiences if we don't really care for them. And of course, you know, from the moment you decide to make a change until you get your demonstration, as we call it, or when you get what you want, we have this transitional period. And that's when we're moving between the old order and the new order. It's a time of releasing old beliefs and old habits, and of learning and practicing and then living the things that we're working on. The new beliefs or the new feelings or the new methods or the new behaviors. And while you're getting those in place so that they are a natural part of your life, you're going to have a lot of vacillating in that period between the old and the new. And you go back and forth between what was and what you would like to be or what you would like to have. And if you decide that you're going to release an old belief and that you're going to create a new one, during that transitional period, you're going to go back and forth. And this is a time when we often get very angry at ourselves because it's like, well, I know all about the new, why aren't I doing it? I must not be good enough, or I must be a bad person. But that's silly, because anything that we're learning takes time. And you go back and forth until you're really strong in the new belief, until you've gone to the complete shift. You know, you may begin to do an affirmation for something, and you're doing well, and then something happens, and you say, oh, I can't do that, and you go back to your old worry habit again. Well, that's just a period of vacillating. It doesn't mean that you haven't learned anything, and it doesn't mean that you're back where you started. It's just part of that back and forth thing. You're not settled in your new habit yet. And that takes a little time and a little practice and a little patience. And you want to be patient with yourself. Be patient with yourself. You know, you want to build yourself up instead of beating yourself up. There's a tremendously different image if you just think of it. Do your thoughts build you up, or do they beat you up? When you beat yourself up, you know, that's not being very loving to yourself. Sometimes we don't need to make outward changes so much as to go within and just sort of take what we already do and alter it just a little bit. Somebody was saying to me tonight that they were thinking about a new apartment and they were worrying that there wouldn't be enough money. this is this crisis called AIDS. You know, I really want to help create a world where it's safe for us to love each other. That's all, just to love each other. A world where we can be loved and accepted exactly as we are. That's what you wanted when you were a little child. When you were little, you wanted to be loved just as you were, even if you were too skinny or too heavy, or if you weren't smart enough, or you weren't like the person across the street, or maybe you were So to help as many people as possible learn to love who they are, it's very simple. That's my work in this world, is to help people love themselves. To love ourselves so that we can get to this new order of what I see as unconditional love and peace and plenty for everyone. And I know that it's possible if we can just get the nonsense out of the way. I believe that when we leave the planet, the only thing we take with us is our capacity to love. We take our capacity to love with us, and that's all. We don't take our relationships, we don't information that you're being given. I have no power over you. You have the power, and you need to know that. We think so often that we are helpless, but we're not helpless because we have our minds. We have our minds. And you shape and mold your life from moment to moment by your thoughts and your beliefs and your attitudes. And you also want to know that you really are important to this world. You might say, well, I really don't do anything. But you are. Just the fact that you're alive is important, and your life has meaning. It really does. And you can contribute to the peace and the harmony of this planet just by using your mind. Now, some people get involved politically, and some people march, and some people do Peace Corps, and some people help feed the homeless and do all sorts of things, and that's fine. But you can also contribute to the peace and harmony of the planet just as much by how you use your mind. And remember, every time you think, every time you're thinking, you're connecting with like-minded people. Think of that for a minute.
First of all, it was the exact right move. I asked that question first, and I had to sacrifice almost everything to accomplish what I had to pull off. So I had to overcome so many different issues in my life, and the only way that I could have done that was to sacrifice literally everything. I had to give my all. I had to become very unbalanced to be able to pull it off, because the mind really wants to go to a happy place, and it wants to stay there. But not everything in life is happy, and everything in life is going to be fun. And my life in my mind wanted to always go in that direction. So yes, it was very uncomfortable, a lot of sacrifice, and I would never change it for anything in the world. So what happens is, well, for me at least, the more successful I became, I call them cockroaches, bottom feeders, people who were like, you know what, this guy worked his ass off. He did it, he worked his ass off, but I didn't. So let me see if I can just attach myself to him or her, whoever worked their ass off, whoever spent those hours, those years, trying to become whoever they are. And then you have these people who are like, you know what? Oh, I'm your friend. So where can I fit into all of this? You know, where can I get on your team? There's a lot of those people once you become very successful, and they come out of the woodworks, and they have these great ideas and these great plans, but they ain't put any work into it. But you put the work into it. You're the commodity. So that's kind of where that comes from, you know, just from firsthand experience. And also, the more successful you become, the less time you have. Because to become very successful, it takes everything, especially if you want to stay at the top. Stay at the top, you have to continue to grind. You can't be like, oh, I made it, I'm here, I'm done. 24 hours in a day, and most of those hours are spent grinding in your business, grinding at whatever you do, and your family. There's not much room for anything else. So it is about getting those fuckers out of your life. And your ego will destroy you. I had one. A lot of us have one. A lot of us alpha males have an ego. We're driven by ego, a lot of us. But what happens is we want people to like us. And that is the biggest downfall in business. To be a leader, not everybody's going to like you. To get from point A to point B very successfully, you're going to piss people off. And the one big thing I found out in life is when you're grinding hard, if you're hearing all these different voices from all these different people because you want to make everybody happy, you're going to implode your business. You're going to implode yourself. So, and one thing about it is you said you want to help people. That is a great businessman. Great businessman. If your true goal in life is to help people first, fuck the money, fuck the fame, fuck people liking you. If it is, I want to truly help people, you will be very successful. Financially, in every other, but your first real passion has to be people first. Not like it's a fucking slogan. It has to come out of you. You have to believe this. People first. 100%. So for the first 2 years, I sold nothing. I gave everything free. All my content, everything I did was free. Only thing I've ever sold in the last 2 years I've been on Facebook, social media, whatever, I've done one thing. I did 3 videos about my book, and that was it. That was it. I'm not trying to sell you anything. People have to trust you. And what you're doing right now is you're gaining the trust of the people. You don't gain trust of the people if you're trying to look for this dollar bill. They see right through that shit. Well, the SEALs didn't beat this into me. You have to have it before you even get there. Because if you're not structured and disciplined before you get there, they can't teach you while you're getting your ass kicked because you'll quit. So basically for me is once you really want to become uncommon amongst the best people in the world, you can't give yourself a way out. A common individual can stay on point for a year and they fall off. That's normal. It's that uncommon person that has, how long I haven't taken the day off for 6 years. You don't hear that very often. That's how you start to separate yourself. So to separate yourself, you can't allow yourself to say, oh man, for some reason, I let myself go for a week and then I just have a hard time getting back. You have to put in your mind that I don't want to be that person anymore. For me to separate myself from everybody, that's what most people do. Most people cannot be like, oh, I'm not missing a day regardless, because if I miss today, I'm going to miss tomorrow. And I know that about myself. So come hell or high water, I'm going to get it in. And you have to get the mindset of it haunts you if you don't get it in. I mean, you really have to have that, because I talk to myself in a very honest way. A lot of things I'm not great at. And if you don't have that in you, you got to tell yourself that. So for me, like when I tell people I know I'm uncommon, it's because I know that there's not many people in the world doing what I'm doing. Not because I'm blowing smoke up my ass. It's because I set out to do this. I set out to be uncommon. You have to set out to be a business person. You have to set out to be an entrepreneur. And you can't be like, you know what? I'm going to be an entrepreneur. No. Has to be something that you're thinking about all the time.
You're just born with it.
You're kind of born with it. But if the idea just doesn't leave your head and you're obsessed about, man, I really want to get this going, you're not going to give up when the time gets hard. So it's the preparation that you've put into your entire life that gets you ready for the unprepared. So what does that mean? If every day you're getting up and you're sacrificing and you're pushing hard and you're exceeding these limits every day in everything you do, your mind is slowly getting calloused. Callous is like, so my hands are calloused from doing pull-ups. And you can callous your mind by continuously pushing hard at whatever you do. So calluses protect your hands. Calluses can protect your mind too. If you're constantly pushing hard, the second this crazy thing comes up you're not ready for, you really are ready for it. Because your mind's like, oh, we got harder shit than this. We can handle this also. But a weak mind, an unprepared mind, not like you know what's going to happen, but most people who come into life unprepared, that one, quick thing that happens to you that fucks you up, it's going to fuck you up real bad. Because you're not even ready for life.
Yeah.
You've never grinded, you've never sacrificed. So how the fuck are you ready for this? So you're preparing your mind every day for those incidents that you're not aware of.
Is it literally every day?
Every day. Every day, because life throws something at you different every day. Unless you just don't live life. Mm-hmm. You just live day to day about, let's pay this bill, let's do this, let's do that. If you're taking chances and taking risk, which is what life's all about, that's how you really make it in the world. You understand that that's going to happen. So it's a long, drawn-out answer, but I kind of cut it short. So I have a very vivid imagination. I visualize a lot of things. And so I believe that there's a higher power. I don't care if you believe in it or not. This is my visualization, that we all die, we all go somewhere. And so for those of you who don't know my story, what I visualize is I used to be 297 pounds, used to spray for cockroaches, used to work for a job called Ecolab, Basically, I made $1,000 a month. To me, I was a loser going nowhere. And I changed my life around. But let's say I didn't change my life around. Let's say I lived to be 71 years old, and let's say you're God, okay? And I believe that we all get judged somewhere when we die. There has to be some kind of judgment of something. And let's say that there's a big long line, and I'm in line, I make it to heaven, and we're standing in line, and you're kind of interviewing people about their life. And behind you is a big whiteboard, piece of paper that you pull down, and on it has their life and what they've lived and what they've done. And it has their name. Let's say it's Jane Doe. And I'm behind Jane Doe. I'm next. I'm 71 years old. I weigh now 350 pounds. I worked at Ecolab my entire life. Okay? That's how I ended up. Even though I didn't. That's how I ended up. You get to me. You pull it down. I'm sitting there. I see David Goggins on the whiteboard there. And I see all these great things. You know, you weigh 185. You became a Navy SEAL. You were in 3 hell weeks, Ranger School, broke world records, have a New York Times bestseller book, motivational speaker, changed lives. I look and I say, hey, God, you know, that's my name, but that's not me. I weigh 297 pounds. I work for Ecolab. That's not what I did. And you look at me and say, well, that's what you were supposed to do, because God knows all. So he knew what you were capable of doing. I just didn't do it. So are you really in heaven or are you in hell? So for me, that would be hell for me. So that's a visualization I have about life. And I got to make sure that every day I'm grinding, because it'd be a bad day for me if I die, get to heaven, and God says, man, you really cut it short. So my mind would be saying, fuck, man, like, you know, that's a bad day. I have a very, like I said, I have to put these things in front of me to give me strength. There's strength all around you, but sometimes you have to make it up. Sometimes you have to imagine it. And like I said, I don't know how the end is, but just in case the end is that way, it's a very big driving force for me. It's a long shot it's that way, but just on the sliver of chance that you have something that you report to that says, man, you failed miserably on what you were supposed to be. So that's a driving force for me.
Talking to oneself is a habit everyone indulges in. We could no more stop talking to ourselves than we could stop eating and drinking. All that we can do is control the nature and the direction of our inner conversations. Most of us are totally unaware of the fact that our inner conversations are the causes of the circumstances of our life. We are told that as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. But do we know that man's thinking follows the tracks laid down in his own inner conversations? To turn the tracks to which he is tied in the direction in which he wants to go, he must put off his former conversation, which is called in the Bible the old man, and be renewed in the spirit of his mind. Speech is the image of mind. Therefore, to change his mind, he must first change his speech. By speech is meant those mental conversations we carry on with ourselves. The world is a magic circle of infinite possible mental transformations, for there are an infinite number of possible mental conversations. When man discovers the creative power of inner talking, he will realize his function and his mission in life. Then he can act to a purpose. Without such knowledge, he acts unconsciously. Everything is a manifestation of the mental conversations which go on in us without our being aware of them. But as civilized beings, we must become aware of them and act with a purpose. A man's mental conversations attracts his life. As long as there is no change in his inner talking, the personal history of the man remains the same. To attempt to change the world before we change our inner talking is the struggle against the very nature of things. Man can go round and round in the same circle of disappointments and misfortunes, not seeing them as caused by his own negative inner talking, but as caused by others. This may seem far-fetched, but it is a matter which lends itself to research and experiment. The formula the chemist illustrates is not more certainly provable than the formula of this science by which words are clothed in objective reality. One day a girl told me of her difficulties in working with her employer. She was convinced that he unjustly criticized and rejected her very best effort. Upon hearing her story, I explained that if she thought him unfair, it was a sure sign that she herself was in need of a new conversation piece. There was no doubt but that she was mentally arguing with her employer, for others only echo that which we whisper to them in secret. She confessed that she argued with him mentally all day long. When she realized what she had been doing, she agreed to change her inner conversations with her employer. She imagined that he had congratulated her on her fine work, and that she, in turn, had thanked him for his praise and kindness. To her great delight, she soon discovered that her own attitude was the cause of all that befell her. The behavior of her employer reversed itself. It echoed, as it had always done, her mental conversations with him. I rarely see a person alone without wondering to what conversation piece is he tied. On what mysterious track is he walking? We must begin to take life consciously, for the solution of all problems lies just in this. The second man, the Lord from heaven in all of us, is trying to become self-conscious in the body, that he may be about his Father's business. What are his labors? To imitate his Father, to become master of the Word, master of his inner talking, that he may mold this world of ours into a likeness with the kingdom of love. The prophet said, "Be ye imitators of God as dear children." How would I imitate God? Well, we are told that God calls things that are not seen as though they were seen, and the unseen become seen. This is the way the girl called forth praise and kindness from her employer. She carried on an imaginary conversation with her employer from the premise that he had praised her work, and he did. Our inner conversations represent in various ways the world we live in. Our individual worlds are self-revelations of our own inner speech. We are told that every idle word that men shall speak, they shall give account thereof. For by their words they shall be justified, and by their words they shall be condemned. We abandon ourselves to negative inner talking, yet expect to retain command of life. Our present mental conversations do not recede into the past as man believes. They advance into the future to confront us as wasted or invested words. My word, said the prophet, shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please, and it shall prosper in all the things whereto I sent it. How would I send my word to help a friend? I would imagine that I am hearing his voice, that he is physically present, that my hand is on him. I would then congratulate him on his good fortune, tell him that I have never seen him look better. I would listen as though I heard him. I would imagine that he is telling me he has never felt better, he has never been happier. And I would know that in this loving, knowing communion with another, a communion populous with loving thoughts and feelings, that my word was sent, and it shall not return unto me void, but it shall prosper in the thing whereto I sent it. Now is the accepted time. Now is the day of salvation. It is only what is done now that counts, even though its effects may not be visible until tomorrow. We call not aloud, but by an inner effort of intense attention. To listen attentively, as though you heard, is to create. The events and relationships of life are your word made visible. Most of us rob others of their willingness and their ability to be kind and generous by our fixed attitudes towards them. Our attitudes unfold within us in the form of mental conversations. Inner talking from premises of fulfilled desire is the way to consciously create circumstances. Our inner conversations are perpetually outpictured all around us in happenings. Therefore, what we desire to see and hear without, we must see and hear within, for the whole manifested world goes to show us what use we have made of the word. If you practice this art of controlled inner speaking, you too will know what a thrill it is to be able to say, and now I have told you before it come to pass, that when it is come to pass, ye might believe. you will be able to consciously use your imagination to transform and channel the immense creative energies of your inner speech from the mental, emotional level to the physical level. And I do not know what limits, if any, there are to such a process. What is your aim? Does your inner talking match it? It must, you know, if you would realize your aim, for as the prophet asked, can two walk together except they be agreed? And of course the answer is no, they cannot. The two who must agree are your inner conversation and the state desired. That is, what you desire to see and hear without, you must see and hear within. Every stage of man's progress is made by the conscious exercise of his imagination, matching his inner speech to his fulfilled desire. As we control our inner talking, matching it to our fulfilled desires, we can lay aside all other processes. Then we simply act by clear imagination and intention. We imagine the wish fulfilled and carry on mental conversations from that premise. The right inner speech is the speech that would be yours were you to realize your ideal. In other words, it is the speech of fulfilled desire. Now you will understand how wise the ancient was when he told us in the Hermetica, there are two gifts which God has bestowed upon man alone and on no other mortal creature. These two are mind and speech, and the gift of mind and speech is equivalent to that of immortality. If a man uses these two gifts rightly, he will differ in nothing from the immortal. And when he quits his body, mind and speech will be his guide, and by them he will be brought into the troop of the God and the souls that have attained to bliss. With the gift of mind and speech, you create the conditions and circumstances of life. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The Word, said Hermes, is Son, and mind is Father of the Word. They are not separate one from the other, for life is the union of word and mind. You and your inner talking or word are one. If your mind is one with your inner conversation, then to be transformed in mind is to be transformed in conversation. It was a flash of the deepest insight that taught Paul to write, put off the former conversation, the old man, which is corrupt, and be renewed in the spirit of your mind. Put on the new man. Put on the new man and be renewed in the spirit of your mind is to change your inner conversation, for speech and mind are one. A change of speech is a change of mind. The prophet Samuel said, the Lord spake by me, and his word was in my tongue. If the Lord's word was in the prophet's tongue, then the Lord's mouth that uttered the word must be the prophet's mind. For inner conversations originate in the mind and produce little tiny speech movements in the tongue. The prophet is telling us that the mouth of God is the mind of man, that our inner conversations are the word of God, creating life about us as we create it within ourselves. In the Bible you are told that the word is very near to you, in your mouth and in your heart, that you may do it. See, I have set before you this day life and good, death and evil, blessings and cursings. Choose life. The conditions and circumstances of life are not created by some power external to yourself. They are the conditions which result from the exercise of your freedom of choice, your freedom to choose the ideas to which you will respond. Now is the accepted time. This is the day of salvation. Whatsoever things are of good report, think on these things. For your future will be formed by the word of God, which is your present inner talking. You create your future by your inner conversations. The worlds were framed by the word of God, that is your inner talking. See yonder fields? The sesamum was sesame, the corn was corn, the silence and the darkness knew. So is a man's fate born. For ends run true to origin. If you would reap success, you must plant success.
What's a snowflake?
A snowflake is a kid, a guy or a gal, mostly guys that melt under pressure. as opposed to what they tell me. You know, God, every snowflake is different, Mr. P. You know, there's not one snowflake that's the same as the other, the trillions and trillions and trillions. I said, yes, that's correct, that's correct. And he says, and so we deserve to be here just like, no, that's not correct. In your opinion, snowflakes melt under pressure. I gave you a couple stats. In 1986, the average man's handshake pressure was 118 pounds. 30-year-old man, 118 pounds. 2016, 96 pounds. A woman, 1986, was 105 pounds. Today, 110 pounds. 110 pounds. Testosterone levels in sperm counts tested 50 years ago, and today they're producing 60 to 70% the amount of testosterone levels in sperm counts as they did. We're dying out. The more snowflakes we have, the less the possibility of the Earth making it. 98% of all the people on the planet that are high performance are introverts. Elon Musk, Warren Buffett, Bill Gates have something in common. They're introverts, just like you. Introverts meaning that you don't say what you really feel. Introverts is you don't act as if you really wanted to show the person that you don't disagree with them. Introverts are when your parents were telling you shit when you were growing up, you just put your head down and kept your mouth shut. And that's why you're introverted now as adults. I wasn't raised that way. My father said, if you've got something in your mind, it should come out of your lips. If you've got something in your mind, it should come out your mouth, Dan.